Hey guys, so continuing talking about learning today, um, we're looking at operant conditioning, which last video we looked at classical conditioning, which is all about having an unconditioned stimulus, so something that produces a response without anyone having to tell them. So, uh, you know, like a Pavlovian example, you have a child that's salivates when they see food. Um, So that's the unconditioned stimulus, and then the unconditioned response, the food and the salvation. And then you put a little timer on your phone or whatever that goes off at noon when it's lunchtime, and so that kid starts to associate that. And now every time that little cell phone alarm goes off, they start to salivate, in anticipation of the food. But it's the actual phone itself that's causing it, which ordinarily a cell phone alarm going off wouldn't elicit salvation in a child, but that has now become the conditioned stimulus that now has the conditioned response, the sound of the alarm, and then the salvation. Okay, so operant conditioning works on a system of punishment and reinforcement. All right, or reward. Um, Very important to again to understand. We have kind of these preconceived notions of what a reinforcement and what a punishment is. We think of like reinforcement good, punishment bad. Reinforcement is something that's good that happens, punishment is something that bad that happens. That's not necessarily the case. What it means in this context is reinforcement is anything that encourages a behavior, increases a behavior, and a punishment is anything that decreases a behavior. And that's it. So words like good, bad, that doesn't have any play here. Does it encourage the behavior? Does it discourage the behavior? If it encourages, it's a reward or a reinforcement. If it discourages, it's a punishment. And that's it. Okay. So Thorndike and Skinner are the two main psychologists responsible for operant conditioning. Okay, you got Thorndike's law of behavior, and then Skinner with his Skinner boxes. Basically, just a series of boxes that you put rats and pigeons and stuff in that would have different stimulus and require basically that they do different things. So it might be reinforcement, trying to get them to pull a lever, and maybe because that lever produces food, and so that rat or whatever learns every time I pull this lever that I get food, and so I want to keep doing that, so that's my reinforcement. Or maybe that lever stops an electrifying grid, or maybe they have a different lever that creates electrified grid, so they realize if I push this, then I get shocked, so I don't want to push this anymore, so that would be a punishment. Okay, so Skinner and his Skinner boxes. And Skinner is of course a major figure in behavioralism. Okay, so here's some of the Skinner boxes. Okay, so encouraging them to push the lever down to get the food, and that's going to reinforce the behavior. Okay, so within reinforcement and punishment, there's different kinds, and this is again where people can kind of get tricked up because of their preconceived notions. So there are positive and there are negative punishments and rewards. Okay, so again, there's this kind of already preconceived notion that positive equals good, negative equals bad. Like it's a positive thing that happened to you or whatever. And in this, again, instance, it's not about good or bad. The best way to get it right is to think of it like a math problem. So positive is a plus. It's that positive sign. And in a math problem, whenever you see that plus, what are you doing? You're adding something. Okay, so you're introducing a stimulus. And same thing for negative. Negative is that negative sign. It's that minus sign. And if you see a minus sign in a math problem, whatever you're doing, you're taking something away. Okay, so you're removing a stimulus. It's not about good or bad. It's about introducing a stimulus. It's about removing a stimulus. Okay? So, if it's a positive reinforcement, you're introducing a stimulus that's going to encourage a certain action. Okay? So, this is kind of what most people think of as a reward. You do something good, you get something. Because people want you to continue that. So, Now you show up to class on time, and your teacher gives you a candy bar. Every time you show up, you get that candy bar, and it's like, man, I really want to show up to class on time to get that candy bar. So that's encouraging the behavior. Okay, versus a negative reinforcement. It's not a bad thing. You're still encouraging a behavior, but you're removing a stimulus. Okay, so you're removing a negative thing. So this is if you have this gigantic, this would be a terrible example for a teacher, but you have this gigantic homework assignment, and it's like 100 questions, and it's like, hey, if you show up to class on time, you only have to do like 50 questions. Okay, so it's like, I don't want to do all that homework, so I'm removing the negative stimulus. I'm getting rid of that negative stimulus to encourage the behavior. So if you get here on time, that negative stimulus, that averse stimulus is taken away. So I almost did it myself. Okay, so positive, you're adding a stimulus. Negative, you're taking away. And punishment is the introduction of an adverse stimuli. Okay, so you're adding something to the equation, but you're doing it to reduce the behavior. Okay, so so you the class, like I'm a teacher, and I tell my class, all right, if 100% of the class doesn't show up on time, I'm gonna play like the most horrible music ever for like the first 10 minutes of class, and you're always have to like sit there and listen to it. And it's like fingers screeching on a chalkboard or something. So I want to decrease the behavior of students showing up late by introducing that negative stimuli. Okay, so they do it. Well, now you get that stimuli, and it's like, oh God, I don't want to do that anymore. Versus the negative punishment, which again, as most people think of when you kind of think of a punishment, you're taking a pleasant thing away. So the removing of a pleasant stimuli. So positive punishment, I'm adding a bad stimuli that makes them not want to do that anymore. And a negative punishment, I'm taking away something that's good that they want. All right. So, and this is like, you don't do your homework, your mom takes away your phone. Okay, that I'm taking away this thing that you like. Well, now because I want you to, not engage in that behavior of blowing off your homework anymore. Okay, or you get in trouble in class or whatever. So, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement. Both of them, you're trying to encourage a behavior. Positive, you're adding a stimuli. Negative, you're taking away a stimuli, just plus minus, adding or subtracting. Punishment, positive, negative punishment. Both of them trying to decrease the behavior. Positive punishment by adding an adverse stimuli. Negative punishment by taking away a pleasant stimuli. Okay? So again, we have to kind of rewire our brains maybe a little bit from the good, bad, positive, negative, punishment, reinforcement. It's just reinforcement. You're trying to increase the behavior. The punishment, you're trying to decrease the behavior. Positive, you're adding something. Negative, you're taking something away. Plus, minus. Okay? So next we'll look at some additional factors as it comes to conditioning. Take care.